Welcome back, folks. We're on to part 2 of the Albion engine rebuild. So on this video we're going to be cleaning up and assembling and fitting some of the components to go onto the engine, some of the ancillaries. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Hi, I'm Ross and you're watching Combat Cars. Grab that cup of tea and hit the subscribe button. Yeah, that's it. All torqued down. Alright, so today on the Albion engine what we're looking at doing is we're going to fit the exhaust manifold and a missing core plug. I'll just show you where they are. So core plug is missing from down here, and obviously the exhaust manifold and inlet manifold is all one unit. It's going on here. So I have to take off all these cover plates, cardboard cover plates that I had for painting it, and prep it for fitting the manifold. This is where our core plug is going. There are two types of core plug. There's this disc type, which is the old style, my smiley face on it, which is what would have originally been in this, and then there's this dish type which has an edge on it. They both do the same thing. Sometimes the application for this, there's not enough of an edge to take up this one, this style one, but in this case it doesn't matter which one we use. There's plenty of room to allow it to fit. So there's a bit of a myth surrounding core plugs. Most people believe they're frost bungs or freeze bungs. They're usually up in the water jacket. The idea of them, when the engine would freeze, if it only had water in it instead of coolant, if the engine froze because it got too cold, instead of the engine block cracking, it would knock out the bungs. And that's a complete myth. It's not true. That's not why they're there at all. They're there as part of the casting process to allow particulates to be removed from inside whatever part of the block it's been cast. So usually the water jacket, it allows you to get the sand out of there when it's been cast. And that's all they're for. They don't prevent the block from cracking. This one, if you notice, is in the bottom half of the engine, so it's not actually in the water jacket. It's actually on the back of the camshaft. They usually have two purposes. One is to allow the particulates to come out. Another one, like in this case, allows machining to take place in the longitude of the engine. So it would have had this in it so that you could line bore all the bearings for the camshaft. And that's why that one is there. So anyway, this is the one we're going to do. These are just samples. This is the one here that I got. It says because it's a Whitworth engine, it is an awkward size, but there you go. This is the one for it. So it should be a tight fit, interference fit, and you just hammer that in, dish facing inwards on these, so the lip is out on these ones. On the other style, it would be dished outwards, and the idea is it would fit in without any effort. It would just be the right size, and then you hammer it here in the centre and it would cause it to spread and make it an interference fit. These ones weren't done like that, they're done slightly differently. So you put them in that way around and they should be an interference fit. Alright, so putting these in is a bit like putting in an oil seal. You want it to go in nice and straight. So I'm going to use this sealed bearing driving set that I have, which will hopefully allow us to put this in nice and straight. That's lovely. Perfect. Okay, so onto the exhaust manifold. So I'm going to take the tape off all these studs and take these cardboard covers off and that. There's 3 studs that came out. They're these long studs. You'll notice that one of them still has a nut on it. That's because one of the nuts came off fine. The other one destroyed the nut taking it off, so I decided to leave that one. It'll be plenty tight and it'll torque on these threads instead, just to save it. But yeah, I've had to get a few new brass nuts. You'll notice they're brass. A lot of old engines use brass to allow it to expand and contract on the stud. So I'll probably clean this all up, but I'll fit 2 of these anyway first, and then I'll probably do this one last. So I'm going to insert these studs here, and I'm going to do that with a little bit of Loctite just to make sure. They probably don't go all the way through, but just in case they do. This will help seal them as well. That's the plan. So let's get started with that. I have some flat washers here which I'll use with the smaller headed nut, just to make sure it's not putting a strain on the nut. I'm going to put some Indian head onto these surfaces here, and then we will put some on the manifold as well. Trying to keep it as clean as I can. Whoa, hot. There. Down there, actually. Out. There. There. There we go. Just put a few of these home for now. So the ones I can get access to, I want to torque them down so that it squashes that down before it cools too much. So I'm putting 30 foot-pounds into these. Two of the nuts failed, the old ones failed, so I had to quickly put on other nuts in their place. I've torqued down the ones I can get access to with the torque wrench, which is most of them. There's only a couple that I can't get at, a couple in here, but I'm pretty confident that has torqued it down. So I'm going to tighten these up with a spanner. And then I have a crow's foot I can put onto that, and then I can torque it off the crow's foot. But yeah, the rest of them are down to 30 foot-pounds, so that I'm pretty happy with that. I'll put in this last one here now, and then I'll get the spanner on the rest of them. So let me just do. There you go. So this is a crow's foot. This is the one I used to torque up the last few nuts that I couldn't get at with the torque wrench. Yeah, so they're torqued down to 30 foot-pounds. I'm happy with that now. It definitely feels like it squashed that gasket. If it doesn't work, and it does fail, the gasket fails, it's not the end of the world. We can get copper gaskets remade. And indeed there are other substances that we can use to make a heat-resistant gasket from. But it's nice to reuse the old one, especially since usually you can get another use out of them, maybe even two more uses out of them, where you can squeeze them that bit more. A bit limited with the brass nuts, but probably move to the other side of the engine. There's carburetor parts, and water pump has to be done, and the decompressors for the top of the block, and a few other bits and pieces that have to be all cleaned up and fitted. So. Okay. Go. Now, and the last one I'll left that for the middle, and I'll put that in once we've got the manifold in place. Okay, so the plan here is to reuse the old copper gaskets, which are in pretty good condition. That's the great thing about copper gaskets. Old copper gaskets, they can be reused. You can heat them up and make them malleable, and they'll squeeze again. So this is the part we're fitting. Plan is cleaned it up. You can see it has a butterfly inside. And it connects to a shaft there. There's a spade in there. And that connects to this. There are studs here and studs here at 90 degrees. We're not going to be able to fit this. It's just physically impossible. So I'm going to have to remove these two studs. Maybe put in a bolts instead. I don't know, but they're not going to come out easy if they come out at all. And I'll probably destroy them taking them out, which is unfortunate. Aside from that, I made up gaskets to go there as well. So there's one there. Oh, and then there's one on the outside of that piece that I have as well. So Now, my stud extractor is broken, so it's back to the old-fashioned way of doing things. There. Well, that was unexpected anyway. We'll see if the other one comes out as nice. Happy with that. Now what I want to do is see if I've got two short bolts or two bolts that I can cut down that'll thread into that instead of them, and that will make life a hell of a lot easier. So I have bolts here. Right, this little side note here, so that's a bolt, and bolt is only threaded on partially threaded. And it's usually a percentage of the diameter of the shaft. When you measure the bolt, you measure it from the shoulder in here. You don't include the head, and from the shoulder to the end. This is not a bolt. This is a set screw. Hence, it's threaded from the shoulder all the way down. That's why it's called a set screw. And these are quite useful because you can buy them long and cut them down to whatever length you want, which is exactly what we're going to do. And that is a stud which has no head. It's just threaded on both ends, and usually with a space in the middle with no thread. This is what I've come up with when I cut the bolt. It's a 3/4 inch shaft, length shaft, and it should fit in there fine and still leave us with enough thread. Now I want to seal up these. I think wait till we see actually. Oh yeah, that definitely goes through. That one doesn't. I'll seal both of them up. Make sure we don't get any water coming out. A little bit of silicone. So what I do here, it's a wee bit messy, but I just get it between my finger and my thumb and just get it on the gasket there. 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 We can stick that in place. Now we need to line up the butterfly. There we go. And then slot that down like that. Now, before we nip them up fully, we'll tighten the bottom one again. Now, right, now that's that part done. The next bit to go on here will be the carburetor, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I think I'll move on to the water pump next. Okay, so these are some of the parts I'm fitting to the engine. This is the water pump, and as you can see, it is absolutely minging. And somebody's already had a go at taking it half apart. Although it is free, which is good. Carburetor. I don't want to disassemble that too much. Some sort of a fuel filter. And these are the decompressors for the top of the engine block. So they're the parts I want to start cleaning up next. Yeah, okay. Alright, decided to try the fuel filter first, so we see what joys this has in store for us. Ooh. It's a lovely little gauze full of lovely little dirt. Yeah, it's not bad in there actually. Right, I'm going to get this all cleaned up and we'll go from there. Right, that's most of it clean. I didn't clean this yet because I'm just going to do that with the air line. So let me run that out and I'll do that. So I think the next thing I need to do, I need a fibre washer for that because it disintegrated when I took it off. I need to replace that as well, which I should be able to do using a bit of gasket paper. Will work out. There's the gasket for that. There's the gasket for that. And the spring sits in there. So there's a fibre washer for that. So now we can start putting this back together. Okay. There we go. We can now fit that to the engine and it'll look all spanking and shiny. Right. So the filter bolts on here. So once again we have to take the tape off these and find some nuts and washers to fit these. Now we'll just find some nuts and washers for that. Now, that's that bit done. So obviously there's a pipe then that goes from here up to the carburetor. These are the decompressors. They go on the top of the cylinder head. You open these to allow the compression to come out, so when you're hand cranking it. Unfortunately, I managed to break one. It was seized in it. It broke off. I got the piece out though, which is something, so I'm going to have our man Stephen make us up one of those to go in there. And then we have three the same and one odd one out. It does the same job, it's just looks a bit different. So they go in here. There's one for each cylinder. There's I have a wee plug, plastic plug just in there. There you go. And they go in like that there. Now, it's a shame they're not all the same. My OCD is not going to handle that, but... And then that's the odd one out.